On this episode of the Backstreet Boys, we're going to be talking about, again, selections for the World Championships. We're going to be talking about the Intercounties and the EA Champs as well. We'll also have a bit of a review by Alex from Vinco. So, on to the selection issue.
I think it's very interesting. We talked about this last week, and here we are a week later still talking about it.
Yeah.
I started last week by saying we're broadly quite happy with these selectors. Not too much to complain about. Yeah. Things have changed since then, I think.
Yeah. Well, I think the thing is, overall, you're right, there's not so many, but there's some really egregious omissions that it's so inconsistent. We've had some people added in this week.
And some confusing additions as well.
Really confusing additions.
If you compare them to the...
Yeah, exactly.
And I would say, before we say anything further, we all are perfectly happy with everyone who's been chosen.
Yes.
You know, got no arguments or complaints with people being put into the team. We think as many people as possible should be put into the team. Our problem is that people have then been left out for no apparent reason, or no good reason that we can see.
The big one, in my opinion, is still Andy Vernon. I just do not understand why he's been excluded. Like, he's got the qualifying time. Early season.
You only got it once, though?
He needs it once, though, because it's 10,000 metres.
Okay, fair enough.
So then he doesn't, in May, block of training, gets back into it, sharpening, runs the season's best, 13.19 on Friday.
If you win the trials and get 2 A standards, then you're selected, and you take it out of the selector's hands.
Yeah.
After that, it's basically a free-for-all.
Yeah. Yes.
They can do whatever they like. Oh, he's not top 8 potential. Says who?
Yeah.
Or,
and what does potential mean? Potential's so completely subjective, isn't it?
Poor Sarita Solomon, who potentially she got in a good race at the anniversary games. Yeah. Lolo Jones kicked over a hurdle. Who knows what she would have run?
Yeah.
And then she comes and runs sub 13 again at the weekend.
Yeah.
Doesn't get selected. She's like, I think, the 8th of all time this year.
Yeah.
European indoor medalist. Obviously going places this year.
Yeah.
Doesn't get selected for no apparent reason whatsoever.
The Andy Vernon one, just quickly, this is a genuine question. That you say the trial was at Highgate.
Highgate 10,000 metres, which is also the Olympic trial next year.
And did he compete?
He didn't compete, no.
But what he did instead, he was in America running 27.42.
I know what he's done.
To run
what I'm saying is,
you need pacemakers and stuff. And Highgate would have put that on for him.
No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying, if he had run there and won, which he obviously easily could have, with the qualifying...
He wouldn't have had the qualifying.
You could have got it... Shut up. Stop interrupting me. If he had done that and got the qualifying elsewhere, then he could have easily... I think this is the overall problem. And the people who are complaining, and we are complaining along with them, that actually... It was in their hands to do something about it.
Yeah.
So we can't really complain too much they haven't been selected because they haven't fulfilled the criteria. Lots of other people haven't either, but they've got to hold some responsibility themselves.
I totally agree with that, because people do have to take it in their own hands. But this is where the problem lies, because other people haven't, and they've still been selected. I mean, just talking about people, do you remember a few years ago when Marilyn Okoro didn't get the qualifying at Crystal Palace before the, I don't know, it must be the World Championship. So the next day, she went to the British League, got Tara Bird to pace her, and ran sub 2 minutes to qualify.
Yeah, fair play.
That's the kind of thing we need to see a bit more of, because that was an awesome thing to do. But just talking about the inconsistencies, of course. We're just talking about the inconsistencies. Jack Green put in an appeal and got put in the team. Great. We all want to see Jack in the team because we know he's going to do big things in the future.
And we went to school with him. No, we didn't. No, we didn't.
Please,
we went to the same school.
Yes, exactly. But just to be consistent, he's only got 1 qualifying time this year.
Yeah.
He didn't run at the trials.
No.
In fact, he hasn't run since the 6th of June.
Okay.
But he deserves a place. Yeah. But Sarita Solomon, who, she came 4th in the trials, but she's got the qualifying time. She's ranked 18th in the world this year.
Yeah.
Well, not in the world, but in the people who could potentially be competing, doesn't get qualified. Danny Talbot, he came 2nd at the trials. He's only got 1 qualifying. He's ranked 26th in the...
With Lennie Waite, who's actually spoke to us, we asked a few questions. She's actually responded to us, and here's a little clip of Lennie talking about her exclusion from the team.
The first question, Matt asked me why I think I haven't been selected for the World Championships. Well, at first when I got the news that I hadn't been selected for the World Championships, I was pretty shocked. I didn't actually think that would happen. I was, knew that things like this had happened in the past with other athletes. I'm particularly close with Steph, and I've heard some of her stories from her past experiences with selection. But when I got the news, I thought, that maybe there was a mistake, and that's kind of what I was hoping for, waiting for my meeting notes. And then I got my meeting notes and I read through it, and they made the decision based on the fact that they didn't see that I had potential to finish top 8 in the world. and that was what they rested their decision on, and it's hard to argue because of the clause about the panel serving as experts, and as athletes we accept their expert opinion. However, I was lucky enough to find some errors in my meeting notes, so I felt like I had a good basis for appeal. And in my appeal, I used some statistics to show that although right now my personal best doesn't put me in the top 8, if you continue looking at the progression that I've made and maybe my chances to run a PB in the prelim and again in the final, then it was actually realistic. And if you looked at some of the athletes that were selected, I would assume that a similar argument had been used for them, because there's not actually many athletes ranked in the top 8 going into the world champs, but the expert opinions are extrapolating, the potential for these athletes to improve on their performances. However, my appeal was uncertain, and they made the selection committee meet again, and the outcome of the second selection committee was still that I didn't demonstrate top 8 potential, even when they were looking at the new statistics and the argument that I made. So that's the reason that I've gotten. However, because of a lot of the inconsistencies in the selection policy, I don't actually think that's the real reason. I wish I knew what the real reason was, because I think that would make it a lot easier for me just to close it, to move on. But the unfairness and the inconsistencies, and extending deadlines for some athletes, and looking more favorable upon statistics for some athletes and other athletes makes it hard. It also makes me feel like there are certain people on the panel that are good at fighting for athletes, and I'm glad for that, because I think everybody on the panel should fight for athletes. And maybe I don't have anybody who is particularly passionate about fighting for my spot, but that's.
I mean, just what Lennie was just saying then about the reasons that you can put in an appeal. It's very, very, very specific and very narrow. So basically, you can appeal if there's been a failure from the selectors, if there's been a failure to follow the applicable selection policy, i.e. if you've won the trials and got 2 qualifying and they don't pick you, you can appeal on that basis. The other basis you can appeal on is if the selection panel reached a decision on the basis of an error of fact. So if you have run a time but they haven't noticed it or something. But they're the only 2 ways you can appeal. And then the other thing, this is unreal. This is like some kind of Orwellian, Kafkaesque. In reaching their decision, the selection panel are acting as experts, and athletes agree that in doing so, the panel exercises judgment and discretion, which are not in themselves capable of challenging.
So basically they're saying is, you can challenge us, but you can't challenge us.
What I was saying before is it's a business that's being run, UK Athletics, it's a business, these guys are representing GB in thing, but they're representing their business.
But it's a business that we all fund.
We all do fund, but there's also funding from other directions which they get. So it's kind of up to them to pick who they want to pick there. But what we said before, it's restrictive of trade, is it?
Exactly.
For Andy Vernon, got the qualifying time, wants to go, wants to compete, but there's something else happening that isn't part of these 2 points that we can't say, but probably is happening.
This week, British Athletics announced the team for Beijing, and you unfortunately been left out. What was your first reaction when you heard the news?
Very disappointed was first reaction. I can't say that I was actually surprised with other things that have been going on behind the scenes. I don't think it was just down to my current form, and I appealed it as well, and it would have been nice. They knew that I was racing here tonight, and it would have been nice for them to just say, okay, we'll give you to Saturday to prove your form. If they wanted me in the team, they probably would have done that, but there's certain people that don't want me in the team, so it's very political.
Okay, that's enough ranting on that for now.
I
think. Okay, so the weekend just gone, it was England Athletics Championships and Inter-Counties. VincoSport was streaming that. Alex is going to do a bit of a review on it. But first, there was an incident with Will Sharman. He actually was in Heat 2 of the hurdles. He jumped into lane 5 at the start of the Heat 1, changed the blocks, did a sprint start into an official. Richard Kilty-esque performance there.
It was very, very strange. When you watch it, it feels like something odd's going on, because it's so completely wrong what he's doing. There's literally no justification for it at all. You kind of think you've missed something. It's not his race. He's in the next race. He comes along. The guy's doing his starts. Moves his blocks.
Takes over, commandeers someone else's lane, someone else's blocks. And when he's told, the guy comes back who was racing. His name I can't remember now, but he came back and he said, "What are you doing in my lane?" Will Sharman just
ignores him,
blows him off. He goes and gets an official. The official comes back, stands in front of him, and says, "You're in someone else's. This isn't your race." and Will just bashes right into her. It's really weird. It's totally out of order.
A bit of gamesmanship. Then I thought, no, it's not, because his main rival wasn't even in that lane.
Yeah.
His main rival who beat him in the final was in the lane next to him.
I don't care if that's gamesmanship. Yeah. I mean, giving him the benefit of the doubt, which I'm reluctant to do, he might have thought it was the wrong. He might have thought it was his heat. But even if he did, the real person's come and said it's not, the officials come and said not, you go, I'm really sorry, oh my God, what a mistake, can you leave? But not Will Sharman.
Yeah, I watched it for like a minute on the live stream, just walking around there, trying to find a spot, and he was doing strides and stuff, so he knew it wasn't his heat, he knew that fact.
The weird thing is, it almost feels like, he didn't get a lot of publicity. Think how, like, Richard Kilty the other day pushed an official and Twitter went into a storm and everyone went into a storm. I only happened to know this because I happened to see
But it wasn't on live TV, it was at the English Championships.
I understand, but you would have thought that it would have got a lot more sort of...
well, also, I would have liked to get a bigger response from, I think it was England Athletics who were in charge of that meet.
Yeah.
I mean, why is he even allowed to run in his heat? Why wasn't he disqualified?
Yeah.
Why hasn't there been some sanction against people? And that's twice very recently that we've seen athletes behave in ways to officials that I don't think is acceptable, and there seems to have been no repercussions whatsoever. I mean, I might be wrong. Maybe English Athletics can let us know if there were any implications.
Part of the rules? Is it like... I'm really mad. I'm really mad.
Well, it seems it's okay.
It's
okay to go around pushing people.
All the kids watching that will go, yeah, let's push all the officials.
But having said that, it's hard enough to get officials into the sport.
Yeah, they're all volunteers.
They're all volunteers. They're not... we respect them for doing what they do, but they need to be properly respected by the athletes.
I've heard the official in question had a bit of a laugh about it afterwards. It wasn't that big a deal to it.
Really
but that's not the point, is it?
No,
it shouldn't really happen. So we have a review by Alex, and he's going to go through the championships.
The International Athletic Stadium in Bedford was the return venue for the AAA Senior Championships and the UK Intercounties. A number of athletes were there who we hope to see later this month in Beijing, including Richard Kilty, Harry Akins-Ariti and Jodie Williams were on display. Kilty and Akins-Ariti chose not to run the final of the men's 100 metres, so that was a chance for Sean Safawantwi to impress, and he did so, running 10.16 in a final that included just 4 athletes. Onto the sprint hurdles, Will Sharman, triple world finalist, was beaten by Ben Reynolds, who set a new national record. On the female side, Sarita Solomon really set across a message to the selectors, running 12.98 World Championship standard, although she later admitted on Twitter that she missed the 24-hour deadline to appeal not being selected for Beijing. On the other hand, Nigel Levine, season's best, 45.84, enough to take the 400 metre senior title, perhaps enough to convince the powers that be to accept his appeal with a late call-up for the 4x4 relay squad. Now, the event also functioned as the England Athletics Disability Championships, and Hannah Cockcroft really stole the limelight here, the new world record in the T34 800 metres, while Johnny Peacock, Paralympic gold medalist, and Libby Clegg, twice Paralympic silver medalist, they won their respective 100 metres. And those athletes hoping to build momentum in their seasons ahead of the IPC World Championships that take place in Qatar in October. And for the rest, meanwhile, it's Beijing that beckons.
Thanks for that, Alex, and that wraps up today's episode of the Backstraight Boys. Hopefully join us again next time.